music like this, Albanone's Adagio. What a fine piece of music, and it lets you know Monday's confession is here and is sent in by, and the speaker goes to Patricia in Croydon. Simon and the Cherubic Clergy. Somewhere in the northwest of England in the 1980s, I'll take you back to a cold February, where it was not surprisingly extremely cold, wet and cloudy. However, the highlight of February was my birthday, and of course, Valentine's Day. On this particular birthday, I was 13 years old. I'd always been a model child, polite, well-mannered, responsible, and my parents were always quick to point out what a good child I was. So, my birthday is the week before Valentine's Day, and this year my mum had bought me some lovely pyjamas. Thanks, Mum. Pastel blue and white striped PJs with lace on the cuffs, and on the front a big lacy bow. Very new romantic.
Very.
They must have cost a pretty penny, by the way. My mum told me to take care of them, giving me the look, you know, the one all mothers give you. Personally, I would have preferred something related to Teenage Ninja Mutant Turtles, like Donatello. He was my favourite. But the pyjamas were nice, and I was quite pleased.
Not.
So fast forward a few days and Valentine's Day. Now, true to my recently inaugurated teenage years, I was in love with the boy down the street we're going to call Patrick. He was divine, Father Simon. I would find excuses to see him in the street, me playing outside his house, me walking the dog outside his house, me roller skating past his house. You get the picture.
Yeah.
Now I think of it, I cringe with embarrassment, but at the time, Patrick was the bee's knees. We've all been there. This Valentine's Day, my friend Catherine was coming round to stay the night in order to fulfill my cunning plan. She obviously knew about Patrick and me. Many were the days and hours and minutes and seconds of talking about our beloveds. She had her own crush at the time, so we took it in turns to go over their respective future husbands. Basically, the plan consisted of sneaking out at who knows what o'clock, i.e. when my parents and big brother were fast asleep, to post Patrick's Valentine's Day card, lovingly chosen at the newsagents down the village. Obviously, I could have posted it so much easier, but this seemed so much more exciting. And as I mentioned earlier, I have a tendency for trouble.
Yeah.
So Catherine came in the afternoon, and we spent it all the afternoon preparing and practicing our escape route. We waited to hear the gentle snores of deep sleep, or in my mother's case, the 747 rumble of takeoff. And we were ready. We crept down the stairs, avoiding the ones that made a noise, sidled past the sleeping dog into the kitchen, opened the back door, and climbed over the fence to the street. Off we went down the street to Patrick's. Everything had gone as planned, carried on as planned. I tiptoed up his driveway, up to the door, opened the letterbox, and in went the card. Catherine, of course, was safely watching from behind a bush, and once the deed was done, off we slinked again back to my house, over the gate, into the house, and a quick high five. So up to now, everything was going okay. But Patrick, you need to know, had an older brother. Let's call him Phil. And Phil, in our eyes, was, to be honest, the ugly duckling of the family.
Oh.
And to this day, I cannot say if it was Catherine or me who suggested sending Phil a Valentine's Day card too. The reasoning being that he would feel really bad if his brother had got one and he didn't. So, and this is for Holly, our intention started off as being quite good. Angelic smile.
Right.
Problem one, we had no spare Valentine's Day card, but quick thinking solved that. It's mid-February, so we had some Christmas cards. So we converted a Christmas card into a Valentine's Day card in a jiffy. Merry Christmas became Merry Christmas and Be My Valentine, all in one, with a few hearts drawn next to Santa and the reindeers.
Yeah.
Problem two, what to write inside? Well, Patrick's Valentine's Day card had a secret admirer, but this one I wrote, "Roses are red, violets are blue, your brother is cute, but we felt sorry for you."
Yeah.
Nice. So once again, off we went, out of the back door, over the fence, down the street. Catherine again ensconced herself behind the same bush, and I tiptoed up the driveway, up to the door, opened the letterbox, posted the card with the confidence of experience. The difference this time was that I inadvertently let slip the letterbox instead of carefully closing it like I had previously, and it made a slight click. Hardly audible at all to human ears, but it was enough for Fido the Rottweiler, Patrick's dog, who woke up and let out a ferocious... We changed the name of the dog.
Of course we have.
Ferocious, let me out to kill the intruder kind of bark. The words, "Run for your life," spewed from my lips. But Catherine must have seen it coming, as she was already halfway down the street. My survival instinct kicked in at this point, and boy, I can tell you I've never run so fast. As I went turbo, I slipped on the wet pavement,
Oh.
but fear had me firmly in its grip and I bounced up and continued to leg it. I did not look back again, but thankfully reached my own house, threw myself over the fence and found Catherine bent over gasping from our 100-metre sprint. She then looked at me and said, "What has happened to you?" She pointed at my legs. On glancing down, I saw massive rents in my beautiful new expensive pyjama bottoms and through the holes my bloody knees. That wasn't swearing. That was swearing.
Just the blood on the knees.
Yes.
Yeah.
It looked like I'd done a better job than Fido would have done. After all, I had a small panic attack then, not because of the blood and cuts, but thinking about what my mum was going to do when she found that I had ripped the pyjamas. Well, as you might imagine, we binned the incriminating evidence of our nightly prowling, and to this day, my mother does not know what happened to those fantastic pyjamas. However, I really beg forgiveness from Patrick's family and Fido the Rottweiler, not its real name, for waking them up in the middle of the night and probably giving them a good scare. And also from Phil, I hope he saw the funny side of our very witty Valentine's card, which is really a Christmas card. I'd like to take the opportunity to say you have a great show and please keep up the good work. I think that's probably in desperation, thinking that Holly is just going to be stern as ever. P.S. Neither of us got Valentine's Day cards. Is that penance enough? Let's find out, Sister Holly.
Well, I just feel really sorry for the brother Phil in all of this. We
Yes.
felt sorry for you. I would have rather just not received a
card.
Valentine's card.
They got lost in the post again.
Then a Christmas card converted, and also your brother's cute. We felt sorry for you. That's just mean. I think that's actually quite nasty. In some ways, that's almost the worst part of the
Worst
confession. And you ruined your pyjamas. Sneaking out in the middle of the night is never a good thing to do. It's just never a good start. And so for all of those reasons, I'm not going to forgive.
Sneaking out twice as well, which seems nuts. Matthew.
It feels like the most important question here is, why are you making 2 trips? Why don't you just send both cards at the same time?
Just post them. Just post them.
During the day.
Why do you make 2 trips? And also, the dog's inside. It's not going to harm you. You can bark all it's like. Unless the dog is able to unlock a Yale lock, you're perfectly safe. Also, it turns out that despite Mum saying, "Oh, you'd better take care of these pyjamas," Mum didn't notice when they went missing. So turns out, Mum, little bit dim. So for that reason, going to forgive.
People's verdict, please do you forgive Patricia in Croydon for her birthday/Valentine's Day confession. On the text, please, 61054. First word is Simon. Today's confession came from Patricia in Croydon about, anyway, so she got the smart speaker, but how she ruined some pyjamas running away from a midnight delivery of a second Valentine's Day card to Phil, the disappointing brother of Patrick. That's kind of what it was, really, and forgiveness to Patrick for sending him a rubbish Christmas card, which was doubling up as a Valentine's card, and it had a rude message in it. So the people's verdict is here, and here it comes.
So forgiven, says Cy in Mitcham, howling with laughter at the Roses Are Red poem that they wrote for Phil. Ultimately, the mother never found out that she'd ripped the pyjama bottoms, so no harm done. Not forgiven, though, says Alice in Leeds. Why didn't she just post it in a normal postbox in the middle of the day? Sneaking out in the middle of the night was never going to end well. But Michael says forgiven. I think giving a Valentine's card to Patrick and Phil is nice. He was making sure his brother didn't feel left out. The thought was there.
Not with that card. I don't think that was helping at all. Anyway, if you have a confession, please share it with us. Send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Today's confession comes from Huey. He gets the smart speaker. Thank you, Huey. Today's tale. Simon and the Forum of Forgiveness. My confession goes back 40 years to late 1983, and it's something that has troubled me from that very day. As a pillar of the community and very respected managing director of an extremely successful business now. But not there. The story starts as an innocent evening, late in 1983, as a 15-year-old with 3 mates. We decided to head off to the shows at the Kelvin Hall in Glasgow. We decided that we would make the day of any young ladies that turned up, so we looked out at our best tracksuits.
Of course. Yeah.
And Le Coq Sportif t-shirts.
Oh, yes.
We just needed to turn up and the girls would fall at our feet. It's a good plan, we thought. Actually, not much. That doesn't count as a plan, I don't think. So we're all ready. Off we went. One of the lads had found his dad's stash of Skoll Lager, and we snaffled a couple of cans for us to consume on the way. So
Okay.
As we arrived and paid, obviously that's not a good thing.
No,
to do.
it isn't.
As we arrived and paid our admission, a belly full of cheap lager, well, half a can each, we then went swaggering around looking for some young ladies to chat up with our best gear on. One,
Yeah, check out these trackies.
one of the lads had enough fluff on his lip it could be picked up with a good pair of binoculars. So we really meant business. As we wandered around, we noticed the punch ball machine. You know, the one where you put in 10p, you press the button and it drops down and waits to be punched. So we thought this was perfect. Not only could we show off our incredible clobber, but also how strong we were. Happy days. Now, this machine measured how strong you were from Weedy right through to He-Man. That was the... that was the
He-Man,
top
everyone.
register,
Yeah.
As I did a bit of boxing, says Huey,
Ah.
I thought at best I'm going to break the machine, or at worst, I'm going to be top scoring as a He-Man. So I engineered my turn to be last, because if I broke it with my strength,
Oh my
course.
word.
then the others may
course.
be disappointed that
Yeah,
they
they would.
did not get to have a turn. Anyway, so friend number one hits the thing, fairly mediocre results. Friend number two hits with a poor display, only one up from Weedy. Friend number three hits with a decent result, getting to the second half of the chart. Okay, right, stand back. This is my turn. Head full of concentration, 2 steps back. I am going to knock this thing into space. As I step forward to unleash my power, I actually missed the punch ball.
Right.
But what happened next has lived with me from that moment. I stumbled forward and what would be described in wrestling terms as a forearm smash landed on an old lady who happened to be passing by with her grandchild.
Oh, dear.
Down she went. She landed on the grandchild, closely followed by me on top of both of them. So the child is crying, the old lady is shouting. I looked for help from my 3 friends, but they'd run off. All I could see them was disappearing into the crowd. I helped the old lady and her grandchild up, whilst taking a Glasgow mouthful from the old lady. I apologised profusely. After she calmed down and I helped dust her down, she went off muttering. Now, 3 young ladies approached me to tell me that they thought what I'd done was pretty decent to help that old lady up after she'd fallen over. In my heart, I wanted to tell them the truth. But what came out when I opened my mouth was, you know, it was nothing. Anything I can do to help. The only way we're all going to get along is if we put others first.
So true.
Oh,
Yeah. Definitely works.
People in the world try to make ends meet.
Yep.
You try to ride car, train, bus or feet. You want to compete. It's like that, and that's the way it is. Now, I know that you know that's Run DMC and Jason Nevins, but they didn't know that. One of the girls took a shine to me, Father Simon. Poet, He-Man and gentleman all in one.
Wow. What a catch.
And smelling of lager.
Uh-huh.
We agreed to meet 2 days later. This went on for a whole 3 weeks, then fizzled out. But 3 weeks when you're 15 is like a permanent relationship.
Yeah, it is.
It's like marriage, except not. I seek forgiveness not from the old lady, as I did apologise at the time, plus she's probably no longer with us, or the grandchild, as...
I mean, it was 1983. Fair enough, I think.
I don't think the grandchild will remember. But I do seek forgiveness from the young lady that thought she'd bagged herself a thoroughly decent, well-dressed young man. However, in reality, she got a lager-swilling, old lady-bashing, lying lout.
Yes.
I hope that she and the Forum of Forgiveness can find a way to look beyond that episode and look at what I've achieved since and forgive me. Oh, beg your pardon.
Annabelle.
What have you achieved since? Well, you're managing director of a successul business. Well, apparently. We've only got...
so cool.
Yes, apparently, but, you know,
According to him.
according to Huey, he says he's the managing director.
Self-confessed liar. Yeah.
That's right. Lager swilling, granny bashing lout. Anyway, what do you say, Sister Holly?
It's just a tale of arrogance from the start, isn't it, really? You know, the fact that he started off, he was strutting his stuff in his really great tracksuit and then thought he could really show off by punching because he thought he would actually break the machine.
Yes.
I mean, it just is so ridiculous and so daft. And falling on the old lady, that was really quite silly, wasn't it? I think he should have come clean to the girl who thought he was being a really nice person. No wonder the relationship didn't last, frankly. And I'm glad she's not with you anymore, because I'm not really sure about that behaviour really from the start. So no forgiveness here.
Okay, stern as ever, ferocious indeed.
Indeed. I don't think we should condemn him for trying to impress the ladies with a bit of Run DMC, because it's the same as using poetry, isn't it? It's the same thing. Someone else wrote it, and you're trying to pass it off, so that's fine. And also, I'm going to say that the granny could take care of herself. I think she was fine, and maybe shouldn't have been walking so close to the punch bowl. Yeah, think about that next time, Granny. So for that reason, actually, it's her fault, isn't it? And the ladies, it turns out, were impressed by his tracky bottoms. So I am going to forgive.
Okay, says the people's verdict, please. Do you forgive Huey, yes or no? On the text, please, 61054. First word is Simon. Before the news, a confession from Huey, who missed the fairground punch bag he was aiming at and crashed into a passing grandmother and grandchild, then helped her up and impressed some passing girls. This led to a whirlwind romance of about 5 minutes.
Yes.
But anyway, he's now a very responsible managing director of a company, so he claims. Anyway, the people's verdict is in like this.
Yes, Josh says not forgiven. As Holly said, Huey seemed very arrogant right from the start, thinking he could pick up all the girls and break the machine. Pure stupidity. Maddie in North Yorkshire, not forgiving, because although you may feel this is a rather arbitrary reason, my horrible ex was called Huey. Just that, really. And John in Cornwall says, forgiven. I'm so glad to be listening to you guys again that for the first time ever, I'm going to agree with Matt. Why was Granny walking there?
Yes, okay. Yeah. I do like the idea of a Glasgow mouthful for certain. Anyway, if you have a confession, we would love to hear it. If we use it, we'll exchange it for a smart speaker. It's Confessions at greatesthitsradio.co.uk. It's confession time, so gather round. And if you have a confession, don't forget you can send it to us, because what's the point of it otherwise? Send it to confessions at greatesthitsradio.co.uk, just like Johnny has done for today's confession and today's smart speaker. Johnny says, Father Simon and team, my sorrowful story begins early 2010. Upon the announcement that my partner and I, after a whirlwind romance, expressed the intention to join in holy matrimony. My partner, we can call her Amber, was lucky to come from a large and loving family who also, by happy coincidence, happened to be very wealthy. After much persuasion, arm-wrenching, gnashing of teeth and a swallowing of pride, I allowed Amber's family to organise and pay for the wedding and reception, with the condition that I organise and pay for the honeymoon. Now, during the course of planning for the honeymoon, I consulted with a friendly and rather efficient travel agent I had already had the pleasure of doing business with previously. My plan was to whisk my new and very beautiful bride to Bangkok, then stay in a hotel in somewhat smaller mountains than I'm used to, followed by 10 days on PP Island. The plan was to travel on I think I've got the pronunciation.
Here's hoping.
It's PHI, I think that's
okay.
PPI.
It's not Fifi.
No.
Let's go with PP.
Let's go with that.
The plan was to travel on a weekday following the wedding weekend, as it was less expensive than embarking on an actual weekend. As I was a freelance office worker, I decided to go into the office and work on the few days leading up to the honeymoon. I placed the itineraries into my work drawer and proceeded to work the next few days. One afternoon, I received a telephone call from my best man, asking me if I'd do him the pleasure of joining him at the public house in Clapham for a night of revelry, high spirits, and perhaps one or two bitters. As the evening turned into these small hours, I did start to feel slightly uncomfortable. So I stumbled home, and I'm convinced I used some sort of public transport, but I'm not sure. Stumbling into work much later that following morning, nursing a spectacular headache, I decided to look at the latest version of the itinerary. I retrieved it from the travel agent's plastic wallet and attempted to focus upon the courier font typed numbers and words. As I did, my heart stopped. According to the official itinerary, my beautiful bride and I should have been enjoying a rooftop dinner in Bangkok round about now.
Oh, no.
Whilst I was on the lash with my best friend the night before, I should have been clutching my bride's hand whilst both fastened safely into two adjacent seats of a British Airways 737 to Bangkok. Panicking, I telephoned the travel agent. Attempting not to slur or burp too much and ignoring the smell of kebab, I explained that my new wife and I had missed the flight, and we were in fact both still in Blighty. The travel agent explained that the process of reorganising the flight, the Bangkok hotel booking, the coach booking to the small mountain hotel booking, the catamaran and PP Island hotel booking would be fraught with obstacles, paperwork, expense, difficulties and more cost, unless, of course, the reason for missing the flight could be attributed to humanitarian causes beyond our control.
Okay.
Seeing pound signs flashing and the face of my angry mother-in-law projected on the inside of my already sore and red eyeballs prompted me to declare that my father-in-law had suffered a massive and terrible heart attack the evening before whilst on a family dog walk and was in fact in Southampton General Hospital intensive care. I realised this was a slight stretch of the truth, as he was in fact at that time a picture of health and playing cricket at his local village green.
Okay.
The emotionally alert travel agent asked me if my bride was of sufficient mind to travel that evening, given that her father was allegedly preparing to knock on the pearly gates. Further inspiration entered my despairing mind and promptly left again. I explained to the travel agent that my father-in-law had expressed as potentially his dying wish
Oh, my word.
newly married daughter go to Thailand to enjoy the honeymoon with her handsome and caring husband.
Oh, no.
Travel agent told me she would do her best and would telephone me as soon as she had any progress to report. The next hour or so was probably the worst hour of my life up until that point. When the telephone rang, it was the travel agent. She informed me that she had tidings of joy to impart. She had in fact managed to reorganise everything. The flight, the Bangkok hotel booking, the coach booking to the small mountain hotel booking, the catamaran and the PP Island hotel booking. All were now booked a day later, starting from this evening. Even the cost of this reorganisation, £750, could not impede the intense joy and relief that filled my heart and mind. The day passed with very few further misdemeanours or terrible realisations. I could even feel my hangover attempting to dissipate. Despite a nervous energy slowly taking hold of me, my wife and I got to the airport without a hitch and we stood in the queue to check in. Our time came. Check-in clerk ushered us forward and I saw a lovely smile appear on the countenance of my new bride. The check-in clerk took our passports, did some magic with the scanners and other electric things, and duly informed us of our seat numbers and printed a boarding card. As we thanked her, she said she was glad that we made it, as the airline expected us the evening before. I exclaimed, feigning surprise, that I had absolutely no idea what she was talking about, and that she had made a mistake. My wife's smile disappeared, just like her mother smiled whenever she looked at me. I grasped her hand and dragged us off to the departure lounge. This scenario occurred at every check-in and check-out from then on. My wife did express surprise several times at the number of check-in clerks who had made the same mistake through the 2 weeks of joyous honeymoon. Anyway, I explained this away by something to do with the international date line or something like that.
All right, yeah.
Here's the thing. To this day, my wife has never found out.
Oh, okay.
So it's another one of those. How
Yeah.
on earth have you kept this a secret?
I love it.
Johnny, still married to Amber, lying, alcohol, exotic holidays. Who could ask for more, Sister Holly?
The thing is, obviously, we've all done that thing where we've gotten the wrong day for something in terms of a meeting or whatever. However, this was your honeymoon. That's a big deal. Very, very important. And so to get that wrong is really quite daft. I also don't like the idea of him lying throughout. He could have just said, look, I'm so sorry, this has happened, but I've reorganised everything. You don't have to worry about it all. And actually, I'm sure she would have been absolutely fine with that. I think lying, it's never the answer. It's never a good thing to do. No, and so that's why I'm not forgiving at all.
Let's see what Matthew makes of
Yeah,
that.
big fan of lying. No problem with that at all. He ended up having to pay £750, didn't he, to get it all sorted. So, there's £750 from Johnny. Well done to him. And also because, he was having to pay for the rest of the honeymoon as well, as it turned out. So I don't think there's anything to forgive here. I mean, obviously, it would be nice to have let Amber in on what had happened. But, he was offered the opportunity of getting it all sorted out, and he came up with the heart attack thing, which feels a bit grim. But anyway, apart from that, it's all forgiven.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this stayed a secret from then until now. I wonder if Johnny's in-laws, should they still be with us, will have a very dim view of this.
Yeah.
They have
Maybe.
power, they have money.
Yeah. He's won them over by now, though.
Do you
That's what I'm
think? I
guessing.
think Johnny's in trouble.
Yeah.
Anyway, the people's verdict, please do you forgive Johnny? 61054 on the text. First word is silent. Just before the news, we had a confession, a torrid tale of Johnny and Amber, who got married, and then Johnny got so drunk he missed the honeymoon. Though Amber hadn't actually noticed that they both missed their honeymoon. Anyway, he rearranged everything without telling anybody apart from the travel agent, and no one has known until this moment. I wonder what mother-in-law is going to make of that. Anyway, this is what the people's verdict says.
Yes, plenty of forgiveness going round tonight. Forgiven, says Simone. There's not a parent in the world that hasn't made up a child's illness as an excuse for lateness or forgetting or not wanting to go out. Time for payback. Sarah from Gravesend, forgiven. But surely his new wife knew what day she was going. I'd have been packed and waiting. And finally, Simon the mechanic in Leicester says completely forgiven, as it was the best man's fault for taking Johnny out. The best man should have known the itinerary.
That's
or
true.
Was he just trying to scupper Johnny's plans because he fancied Amber?
But it was a little bit late.
Oh, yeah,
that
because
they
we were at
just
the
got
wedding.
married.
Oh, well,
okay,
yes.
well,
Yeah,
maybe
true.
the best
Yeah.
man wasn't very bright.
No.
And hadn't noticed.
Yeah, that's also an option.
Okay, there's a prequel to be made there. Okay, so your confession, please don't forget the podcast. A brand new one will be available on Friday, but your lovely and fresh confession would be very welcome. Confessions at greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Today's confession comes from Robert. It does contain some fairly excruciating, not rude language, it's just
really?
a little bit...
Oh, a bit fruity.
really? And also requires an Italian accent
Excellent.
and a Bristolian accent.
Wow.
Even better.
Ooh.
Even
So I apologise to everyone from in the Bristol area and also anyone who is Italian. So here we go. This comes from Robert. Okay. Father Simon and your humble congregation, I feel it is now time to fess up for an action I undertook about 15 years ago, which I feel deeply ashamed and feel the need to cleanse myself. It all started on an evening out with my fiancée. Here's the first thing. Who is still my fiancée due to never getting around to actually organising a wedding. So that's at least 15 years they've been engaged.
Goodness me.
So I'm in a well-known Italian restaurant in the city centre of Bristol. All was going well to begin with. We were greeted by the lovely lady at the entrance, who we shall call Antonia, who sat us very close to the entrance on a table for two, opposite a window, without anything to look at. She asked politely in an Italian accent, "Can I get you a drink?" I replied in my Bristolian accent, "Pint of Peroni for myself and a glass of rosé for the lady."
Hang on.
Coming,
Somerset.
all right. Well, well, it's generic. Okay,
Oh,
it's
really?
off the shelf.
Oh, good.
Coming right up, she said with a cheeky
Right
smile. And then she said, "I won't be a minute." Now, to me, won't be a minute means, say, 5 minutes tops, but not according to Antonia. I know that in the Mediterranean, it's a little more laid back. However, apparently won't be a minute means 15 minutes. And eventually our drinks arrived, and she then stated she'd be back to take our order in a minute. Oh, blimey, I thought, here we go again. Finally, after being sat down for at least 25 minutes, our order was taken and we were told the garlic bread with cheese to share would be out in a minute, in addition to another round of drinks. Now, don't get me wrong, it was a very busy restaurant and it did appear very understaffed. Poor Antonia reminded me of Mr. Tickle, with her hands and arms all over the place dealing with many tables and orders. However, 45 minutes had passed until our garlic bread and cheese finally arrived. It was devoured in seconds like a locust in a cornfield. I think I must have had 3/4 of it, and my lady had a quarter.
Okay.
I mean, my lady?
And why did you have 3/4?
Anyway, it certainly wasn't enough to fulfill my hunger and or calm down my agitation. It was at this point, with a little bit of help from the Peroni, that some switch went off in my brain. This was on the 1 hour point, when we hadn't actually received our carbonara or arrabbiata, respectively. And suddenly I had a sneaky idea of amusing myself to pass the time and distract my hunger pains. You may remember I mentioned we were situated near the entrance of the very busy restaurant, opposite a window with nothing to look at, and we were sat right by the greeting counter. This greeting counter had a very stylish cream-coloured phone, the type that Joe Pesci would smack someone around the head with in a gangster film. Joe Pesci, obviously.
Joe Pesci, yeah.
That's an interesting, that you look at a phone and think that's the kind of phone Joe Pesci
Yeah,
would use to
bizarre.
smack someone around the head with. Anyway, stuck to the counter in big bright lettering was the restaurant's name and telephone number. At this point, my lady had gone to the toilet.
Again.
So this was my opportunity. I reached my hand deep into my pocket, took out my mobile phone and began discreetly to type in the phone number of the restaurant. 141 obviously typed in first, so she wouldn't know who it was. I then put my arms into a folded position, hiding the phone. Bring, bring, bring went the phone and began ringing and ringing and ringing for a little while before a sprinting Antonia picked up the receiver and introduced herself and the name of the restaurant. A simple, secretive press of the red button on my Nokia cut the line dead, and her quick but polite efforts were in vain. My lady was back from the toilet, but was none the wiser. I was still sat with my arms in a folded position with the phone hidden. The advantage was this time that as the restaurant's phone number had already rung, it was just a question of tapping the green button twice. And as we continued to plough through our main, I gave the phone a double green press. Again, poor Antonia dodged and weaved like a rugby centre and got to the phone. Hello, hello, she was booming down the phone, but once again, I got no response. In my evil mind, I wanted to see how far her buttons could be pressed until she began screaming. I think, Robert, no forgiveness, by the way. It was on the 6th calling attempt when it all started to hit the fan. The bring-bring noise made Antonia jump out of her skin and up into the air like a bad juggler. Smash, crash, bash went our plates, side plates and cutlery. Smash, crash, bash, accompanied by the standard "Wah-hey" by the restaurant guests, echoing around the room. Feeling guilty, I offered to help Antonia, but she politely said, "It's okay, it's obviously just not my day." To which she began to tell my lady and I her recent misfortunes, that she'd been dumped by her cheating boyfriend, had failed one of her university exams. In addition, 3 co-workers had phoned in sick and her boss hadn't eased up on the customer allowance in the restaurant. We began to offer our sincere condolences and deepest sympathies, which she rewarded us with a free dessert, which actually came quite quickly, 10 minutes in Antonia time. "You're the nicest customers I've had all day," she smiled and gave us a wink. Well, of course, I felt terrible, but to my credit, I did leave a generous tip, says Robert. Oh, well, that's all right then. We left the restaurant eventually full, and my lady still doesn't know that it was me that was making the phone ring every 5 minutes. Father, Son, wherever Antonia is, I am seeking forgiveness for my 7 wind-up silent calls that drove her to turning a well-known Italian restaurant into a Greek one, for only adding to her day of misery and driving her to tears, even if I did get a cheeky free dessert. In my defence, you have to understand hunger pains and agitation I was going through. I needed amusement, I needed distraction, but now 15 years further on, I feel as though I need some forgiveness, but I don't think you're going to get any of it at all. For behaving like a pillock. Anyway, Sister Holly looks severe.
This is bad, Robert. No offence, but I don't really like you all that much. We're going to start off with the fact that with the bad stereotypes of Italian and Mediterranean people. Although it will just be a minute, but in a minute it's really slow there. Then you kept calling your partner my lady, which is just a bit naff.
15 years of being engaged.
That's just a no. And then, who enjoys seeing someone rushing around? She's rushing around. She's really busy. Those waitresses and waiters, they work very, very hard. They're doing everything. They're doing their best. And you thought, oh, I'm just going to push her buttons and make her life worse. Who enjoys doing that?
Robert is the
Robert
answer.
does, and for so many reasons, not forgiven.
Good luck with this one, Matthew.
I mean, it's going to be it would be so easy, wouldn't it, just to condemn Robert for that. And to be fair, I mean, he's made everything worse, hasn't he? By calling constantly, he's made sure that everyone's meal is going to be delayed. So probably everyone in the restaurant hates him. We don't really like him, but he's written in for the confession, hasn't he? And he's bared his soul. He knows he's not going to get forgiven. Well, he's going to get forgiven by me, just because of the accents. I'm giving it for the accents, just for the Italian and the Bristol, Somerset, Southwest, Wurzel accent. So for that reason, I'm going to forgive.
No reason at all.
None.
Okay, 61054 on the text. First word is Simon. Do you forgive Robert? No, you don't, eh? Anyway, the people's verdict is in. Here it comes.
Yeah, no one's forgiving. This is so cruel, says Johnny in St Ives. Politely making a complaint would have been okay, but prank calling the restaurant to make her upset, that's so horrible. Hannah, not forgiven. Who puts more pressure on someone who's already rushed off their feet? I bet people had to wait longer for their food. Don't give him the smart speaker.
Well, I was thinking whether we should withhold the smart speaker.
Well, Samantha in Pontefract on that point says, not forgiven. Poor Antonia. Can we not send her the smart speaker instead?
Okay, well, this is what I'll say to Robert, who's not his real name. Maybe because that's the deal. If you get it, you get a smart speaker. When you get the smart speaker, maybe you should find someone else to give it.